Hello! Welcome back to Critters Book Club. Today I'll be discussing and recapping chapters 6 through 10 of Kith and Kin, a book covering the backstory of Critical Role's half-elf twins, Vex and Vax. A little about me, I have zero Critical Role experience, except that I watched the entire first season of The Legend of Vox Machina and loved it. In fact, I have a whole playlist here on YouTube with my reaction videos from season 1. One last thing before we get into the discussion, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps so much. Without further ado, let's get into it for part 2 of Critters Book Club, Kith and Kin. Chapter 6. Liar, the man Vax bested on the rooftops and then again in the streets, led him to an abandoned flower shop all the way into the basement. Vax accurately guessed that the man was involved with the Clasp, a powerful guild of thieves, smugglers, assassins, and spies. After winding further underground, Vax was confronted by a group of people who demanded he give over his blades before they lead him to Spiraling Gideor, who was one of their leaders. He did so, and when he met with Gideor and inquired about the contract on Vex, Gideor told him that a minor nobleman had offered it. When asked about canceling the contract, Gideor said that he might be persuaded to modify it. In exchange, he expected Vax to retrieve a ring in Joran village in a simple heist.
You son of a bitch, I'm in!
He also indicated that there was more work where that came from for the Clasp if they were successful. Gideor also noted as a sort of afterthought that Vax would also be required to swear his allegiance to the Clasp. Gideor then gave Vax a tour of the bustling lair, which included an awesome tavern, to show Vax that the Clasp indeed took care of their own. When asked what the Clasp did with members that failed their missions, Gideor led Vax to Liar and then led them both to an apparent meeting room for the 3 Spirelings, the leaders of this guild. Gideor retrieved a staff from a locked cabinet, which Vax eventually noticed was made with curling and twisting tongues. Gideor told Vax that he would show him, rather than tell him, how he could modify the contract to make it safe for Vex. He then turned to Liar, told him that the Clasp did not suffer failure, and turned him into a perverted copy of Vex with the staff. And then once he was that copy, he ripped his tongue out and gave it to the staff as if a sacrifice. The tongue then became a part of the staff. Gideor then casually told Vax that, as far as he was concerned, they were under contract, and Vax was forced to agree. Thoughts on chapter 6? This was intense. I was surprised that Liar didn't get punished immediately whenever he led Vax to their lair, because he really seemed to think that he would. But boy howdy did punishment come eventually. That scene with the staff was a gross read if you're a visual reader, if you visualize things when you're hearing or reading them. The imagery of a staff made of tongues was effective. It was not a pretty princess staff. Like, ew. It was a very sneaky way to get around the contract though, so props. Chapter 7. When Vax told Vex about the contract the next morning, she was initially very upset because they had always intentionally avoided the Clasp. Vax, not wanting to lie, told Vex that he had accidentally thwarted a Clasp mission the night before when he was following Vex's assailant after she had escaped. So, he told her he had no choice but to accept the mission. He skirted around the fact that Vex had been the target of the original Clasp mission, but when she asked about their payment, he let slip that them getting to walk away with their lives was payment enough. Vex didn't miss the slip. As they were on their way out of the city, they discussed the job. Vax informed Vex that the ring was called Fracture. It had a silver band, cloudy gems, and shards of bone. And it was also in the possession of the Joran village Shade Watch. They retrieved Trinket first and foremost, and Vex confirmed with Vax that if it got too dangerous, they were just going to run. After all she really needed was Vax and Trinket by her side. They proceeded toward Joran village and met a messenger along the way. The messenger told them that they would soon catch up with a group of merchants, and they should consider traveling with these merchants because there were dead things coming down from the hills near Joran village. The news about the dead things made Vex question whether this was going to be a simple heist.
Would that it was so simple. Would that it was so simple.
But Vax seemed excited about the prospect of there being dangerous things afoot. When they made camp that night, Vax apologized to Vex for dragging her into this. Vex replied that she dragged him in first, but that it didn't matter because she would go with him anywhere. Vax gave her a wrapped bundle in which Vex discovered the copper bear that she had admired in West Run. It was tied to a leather necklace. Vex immediately admitted that he did not pay for it, but that he had still wanted her to have it because he had seen how much she loved it. He then gently tied the necklace around her neck. Thoughts from Chapter 7. Okay, things are heating up a little bit. I thought they were already hot. Not quite. Dead things in the hills? And a skeleton ring? No, a skeleton ring, not a skeleton king. Or a scorpion king. No way those things are related, right? Absolutely no way. And very cute that Vax swiped the bear for Vex. But, and please don't come at me for saying this, I'm just calling it like I see it. Sometimes the relationship between those two could be confused for a romantic relationship. Maybe this is a twin thing. They just seem very intimate, like really close. The gently tying the necklace around the neck, the I'll go with you anywhere. It just, like, out of context, some of this stuff seems romantic. I'm just saying. They're just really close, though. I'm not suggesting it is romantic. It just reads that way sometimes. Okay, Chapter 8. 11 years ago, the twins were 10 years old and approaching Singhorn, a beautiful city with spires and citadels extending above jade green walls. They couldn't decide whether it was a dream or a nightmare, so they just reached out to each other and entwined their fingers. Of the 3 guards that had shown up to their doorstep with a letter from their father, the youngest one of them, Theron, was the kindest. They encouraged the twins, trying to convince them that being a part of their father's household would come with many benefits. When asked by the twins if there were other half-elves in the city, Theron, definitely uncomfortable, told them that none but elves were citizens in Singhorn. But some visitors had leave to stay there, so long as they respected Singhorn customs, but that they didn't know any half-elves among them. At the gate, one of their other guards announced them as Ambassador Sealdor's half-elf children. The city was massive, stretching as far as the eye could see. Vex and Vax saw Singhorn as a place of promise, which was one of the only reasons they followed their father's instructions. When they got to Sealdor's home, it was pretty massive. When no one immediately came out to greet them, Vax suggested that they just go back home, but Vex insisted that they needed to at least try to make it work, especially because their mother wanted them to. The door then opened and Sealdor, the traveler that they had seen many months ago, their father, stepped out. He wore finery in place of his practical traveling clothes and regarded their travel-worn appearance with distaste. He commanded a servant to see to their belongings and discard their clothes, and then more or less commanded Vex and Vax to enter the house. Vax bristled, but Vex suggested maybe he just wasn't used to them yet. Sealdor led them to his office, visibly impatient, and indicated that he was glad their mother decided to send them. He claimed he was unaware of their existence until very recently, but he hoped that they were still young enough that all hope was not yet lost. When Vax angrily asked him what that meant, he replied that their education had been abysmal, but from then on they would have the finest tutors until they could learn among the other children their age without embarrassing his name. On that note, he also told them that they couldn't leave his house without his permission or disturb him during his work. Vex had hoped meeting their father would be different, and instead she was fighting off hurt, confusion, and contempt. Not what she had expected. Sealdor then brusquely dismissed them. Thoughts on Chapter 8? Elves are judgy bastards, huh? So I was a bit confused from this chapter about what happened between the last flashback and this flashback. I guess based on the clues we got, Sealdor went to buy Roden first. He did not meet the kids, but he did meet with their mother. And then he later sent messengers with a letter to bring his kids back if they agreed. That seems like such a weird order. Like, why would he not have met them when he visited first? But he does seem like a pretty weird guy, so I guess we're just gonna let that explain it. Definitely starting to see where Vex gets her insecurities from, though. I assume we'll flesh that out a little bit in future flashbacks. Chapter 9. We're back to present day, and though Vex and Vax had seen Joran Village on the horizon off and on as they crested hills, they weren't quite going to make it that night, so they needed to make camp. Vex scouted ahead and discovered the merchant's camp and the twins decided that they needed to join them given all the rumors about the dead things and such. Usually, that would not be their preference. The merchants welcomed them into their camp after only a brief moment of tension, and Vex asked them what was going on in the area. The merchants confirmed the messenger's story that ash creatures had indeed been plaguing the hills, but they assured the twins that they were far enough from Joran and they wouldn't have to worry about it. Vex went to sleep curled up next to Trinket, and Vax sat down next to the scout of the merchant group, another half-elf. The scout immediately guessed that Vax was from Singhorn given the way he talked and the way he moved, and she noted just kind of offhand that it was an easy place to learn how to hate yourself. Shortly thereafter, the creatures attacked. The scout called out to wake the camp, and multiple waves of strange, shambling creatures in various states of decay, covered in ash, with gray bones and skin, eyes like embers, clawed fingers, and sharp teeth spread through the camp. Vax made sure Vex was awake, the two locked eyes, and then the fight truly began. Waves of the creatures came, overwhelming Vax, and ultimately landing a heavy blow to his head. Vex was just launching arrows left and right. Vax, in a daze, heard horses and footsteps, but sharp claws raked deep across his back. Ash swirled up around him. A chill spread through him. His muscles locked up, and he fell forward. Darkness claiming him. Thoughts? I don't know if I fully expected to get zombies this early, or at all, but why the heck not? And clawed, dusty zombies is a whole new vibe. So that's fun. Things are looking very bad for Vax. Like those injuries, they sounded pretty intense. But if I know Vex, she'll take care of him, especially because I know he survives because he shows up in Vox Machina. Chapter 10. Vex lost sight of Vax in the fray when the soldiers showed up. Vex and Trinket tried to make their way to where they last saw him, and in all of the chaos, Vex thought she caught a glimpse of him, but then in the scramble, she lost sight of him again. The glimpse she did get, though, he was laying on the ground. While she was still struggling to fight the creatures, an arm wrapped around her and jerked her up onto a horse. The rider told her they were retreating to Joran Village, and when she said that she needed to get her brother, the rider told her that someone else would. When they had cleared the fray, Vex asked about the creatures, which the soldier called ash walkers. Once they made it to Joran Village, after Trinket had caught up with them, visibly annoyed that someone had so unceremoniously snatched Vex up, it became apparent that the villagers had been through ash walker attacks before. It was organized chaos. The rider told Vex that Shade Master Darwin had ordered the Shade Watch to bring in travelers that were outside the walls. Then the gates were ordered closed. And though Vex hadn't seen Vax yet, there were still horses trickling into where she was. Eventually, though, it became clear that Vax was not among those rescued. Vex demanded to know where her brother was, and when the soldier told her that they had brought in everyone that they could find, she demanded that she be let out to go find him, but the soldier told her that that was impossible, particularly because the Shade Master was raising the barrier and the gate had already been closed. Around her absolute panic and self-doubt, she channeled her father and demanded to be let out or to talk to someone who could help her, even if it was the Shade Master.
I want to see the manager.
You want to see the manager?
Yeah.
Yeah? I'll show you the manager. Here's the map.
Two guards escorted her up onto the palisades, where a human woman, sword at her side, was standing with her left hand raised. She was casting a spell, raising the barrier that was keeping the town safe, and right at the still expanding barrier was a ring with dark, cloudy gems and shards of bone. Thoughts? We found the ring! Mildly problematic that it's keeping safe this town of people that just rescued Vex from certain danger, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I had a feeling that Vax wasn't gonna ride into town on one of those horses. It would be too easy. And once Vex finally realized what had happened, I could feel her despair. I did love how she activated what I would call her inner Karen, though. I demand to see a manager. I also love Trinket's feisty personality. How dare someone get the drop on both him and Vex. I don't see Vex convincing them to let her go, but we'll see how it works out. Final thoughts. We are fully heating up now. We got way more action in these 5 chapters than we did in the first 5. The twins have more or less been in lockstep before now too, so it'll be really interesting to see Vex out on her own, and possibly Vax. I was also excited to get more of their further backstory, though it seems like it's not going to be a walk in the park in Singhorn with their uptight dad. I hope you're enjoying this journey into Vex and Vax's history. I know I am, and it's definitely getting me even more hyped for Vox Machina Season 2. If you're reading along long, I plan to read through chapter 15 for my next video, which I hope to get out late next week. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to my generous patrons and members. If you want to support my content, you can do so by becoming a patron on Patreon or a member on YouTube. And if you're looking for a totally free way to support me, just liking this video, subscribing to the channel, commenting on the video, all great, super helpful things. That's it for me. Thanks again for watching. Bye!